The boy who would one day abandon everything in search of truth was born beneath the shade of ancient trees, where the scent of jasmine floated in the air and the sacred river shimmered beneath the sun. Siddhartha, son of a Brahmin, was destined for wisdom. He was gifted, admired, his father's pride, his mother's joy, his people's hope. Yet, within him, an ache began to grow, an emptiness that prayers could not fill, that scriptures could not satisfy. He watched the priests recite holy verses, the elders debate the nature of existence, the devotees bathe in the river's sacred waters, and yet, he saw no one who had truly found peace. He saw devotion, discipline, knowledge, but not enlightenment. He saw men searching, but none who had arrived. And so, one evening, as the sky burned with the colors of dusk, he stood before his father and spoke words that shattered the stillness of their home. "I must leave," he said. "I must go and seek the truth for myself." His father's heart was heavy, for he had dreamed of a different life for his son. But he saw in Siddhartha's eyes the fire of a man who would not be swayed. And so, as the night deepened and the stars bore silent witness, Siddhartha left, stepping beyond the life he had known, beyond comfort, beyond certainty, into the vast unknown. Through forests and villages, past mountains and rivers, he walked with Govinda, his childhood friend, by his side. They sought out the samamas, the wandering ascetics who lived without possessions, without desires, without names. With them, Siddhartha fasted until hunger was a distant memory, meditated until his body was forgotten, silenced every longing until he felt nothing at all. He lived as they did, believing that to kill the self was to kill suffering, that to empty oneself was to attain freedom. Yet, in the hollow eyes of the oldest samamas, he saw only weariness. They had spent decades wandering, renouncing, enduring, and yet they had not found what they sought. A seed of doubt took root in Siddhartha's heart. If these men had not found the truth, how could he? Then came whispers of a man unlike any other, a prince who had left his kingdom, who had meditated beneath a tree, who had awakened as the Buddha. Siddhartha and Govinda traveled to hear him speak, and when they beheld him, Siddhartha knew at once that this was no ordinary teacher. The Buddha spoke of suffering, of desire, of the path beyond them. His words were clear, his presence serene. Govinda was captivated. He bowed before the Buddha and chose to stay, to follow him, to become his disciple. But Siddhartha, though he felt the power of the Buddha's words, knew that teachings alone could never bring him peace. He stood before the Enlightened One, and with deep reverence he spoke. "Your words are beautiful, your wisdom undeniable, yet you have given me nothing that I did not already know. You have found enlightenment, but you cannot give it to me. I must find my own path." The Buddha, neither angered nor saddened, smiled and said, "You are wise, young seeker. May your path lead you to the truth you seek." And so, once again, Siddhartha walked away. He had renounced pleasure, and it had not given him truth. He had renounced the world, and it had not given him truth. Now he would renounce seeking itself. He wandered into the world of men, where merchants bartered and lovers whispered, where gold passed from hand to hand and laughter filled the air. Here he met Kamala, a woman as beautiful as the moon, as wise as the river. She taught him the art of love, but she would not give herself to a beggar. "To be my lover," she said, smiling, "you must learn the ways of the world." And so, Siddhartha became a merchant, learned the language of business, the pleasures of fine clothes, the taste of honeyed wine. The years passed, and he grew wealthy. He played the games of power, of pleasure, of indulgence. He owned houses and servants, tasted every joy the world had to offer. But beneath it all, something in him withered. The hunger for truth that had once burned so brightly was now buried beneath the weight of gold and silk. One night, he dreamed of a songbird in a golden cage. In his dream, the bird lay dead, silent, lifeless. When he awoke, a deep sorrow filled him. He had become lost in a life he once scorned. He looked around at the riches he had amassed and saw nothing but emptiness. The illusion shattered. Without a word, he left everything, his wealth, his home, even Kamala, without regret, without looking back. He wandered once more, aimless, weary, until he came to the banks of a great river. As he stared into its depths, despair took hold of him. He had sought truth in suffering, in knowledge, in pleasure, in love, and still he had found nothing. The river whispered to him, calling him to its depths. He leaned forward, ready to surrender, when suddenly, through the rush of water, he heard a sound, soft, endless, eternal. The sound filled him, surrounded him, became him. He did not fall into the river. He fell into silence. And in that silence, something within him awakened. From that moment, he stayed by the river, learning from it, listening to its whispers. He met Vasudeva, a humble ferryman, and together they tended the river, watching it flow, watching it change, watching it remain. Time passed, and Siddhartha, now aged and serene, found the peace he had sought for so long. Not in seeking, not in renouncing, but in simply being. Then, one day, Kamala arrived, her face lined with years, her steps slow. Beside her walked a young boy, his son. Siddhartha, who had abandoned all attachments, felt love bloom within him. But love, too, brings suffering. The boy, accustomed to riches, resented his father's simple life, longed for the pleasures of the city. And so, one morning, he fled, leaving Siddhartha with the ache of loss. He had tried to hold on to love, and love had slipped away. But as he watched the river, he understood. Love and loss, joy and sorrow, they were all ripples in the great current of existence. Nothing was ever truly lost. Then came a final visitor, Govinda, now an old monk, still seeking, still yearning. He did not recognize his friend, but when Siddhartha smiled, something stirred within him. "Tell me," Govinda pleaded, "what is the secret of your peace?" Siddhartha did not speak. He simply touched Govinda's forehead, and in that moment Govinda saw, not in words but in experience, the unity of all things. He saw the river, the stars, the laughter of a child, the sorrow of a mother, all merging into one eternal flow. He saw that there had never been anything to seek, for everything had always been here. And as he wept in joy, Siddhartha smiled, for he had finally arrived, not at an answer, not at an end, but at a perfect, endless beginning. If you liked this summary, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating more engaging content.